So, welcome, and we are going to be getting into other types of patterns of inheritance in terms of problem solving. So, last time I saw you guys, we were doing dominant recessive patterns of inheritance that involved a dominant allele masking a recessive allele, and that's basic Mendelian patterns of inheritance, but there are other ones as well. So, this is a pattern of inheritance known as codominance. So what you see here in the picture behind me is a dog where there's both dark brown hair and white hair. So it's not that it's not that the dark brown overpowers the white hair or the white overpowers the dark brown, but both of those color hairs appear at the same time. Here, these are chickens. So these are black chickens and these are white chickens. And this is the P generation or the parent generation. In this offspring, there are what we call, in quotes, blue chickens or checkered chickens. So those chickens have both black and white feathers. So we call them checkered chickens. So it's not that black overpowers white, but rather in what we call the heterozygote, both of the colors are seen. And here in the heterozygote, both of the colors are seen as well. So coming back here, this is a horse called a roan. And its parents might have been a red horse or a chestnut horse and a white horse. So this horse would have had brownish red hair or red hair. This one would have had white hair. But this offspring, which is the heterozygote, doesn't have red over white or white over red, but both of them show. So in this pattern of inheritance, the dominant allele does not completely show up over the recessive, but instead, both alleles show in the heterozygote. So we call this codominance. So the heterozygous genotype shows a combination of both, I believe that's what it says, yes, of both possible phenotypes, and both alleles show full phenotypic expression, meaning that in the heterozygote, both alleles will show their physical appearance. And so here in the roan horse, I know that you can't see it in the image, but if you look up close, it would have both red hairs and white hairs, just as this dog has both brown hairs and white hairs. So they're both visible. So here is, so this is actually a more up-close image of the roan horse. And similar to this dog, there are hairs of both colors. And here's an up-close image of the chickens where we have the black chicken, the white chicken, and they cross, and we get, I see it says blue chicken here, but they're also known as checkered chickens. And we get a black chicken, two checkered chickens, and behind the video here is one white chicken. So now let's do a cross, right? So let's do a problem. So in the problem, it says a black dog mates with a white dog. So what % chance will the offspring be spotted? So this is an example of codominance. And so it says spotted because there will be both black hairs and white hairs. What are the genotypic and phenotypic ratios? So if I go backwards here, you see that there's a B here for black and a W here for white. So in this image I got off the internet, they put it with the letter C, which represents codominant. But we may write just B and W for black and white, and that's fine. You don't have to put this letter as notation. Here, in this image off the internet, you see W represents the white and B represents the black. So it's referring to the same cross. They wrote the letters differently. Here they included the C in the notation. Here they did not include the C in the notation, and that's just the way it is, and you don't need to. In fact, we're not going to. All right, so here for the dogs, okay? So I hope you can see this. All right, so here for the dogs, B will represent the black allele. Okay, so B will represent the black allele, and W will represent the white allele. When we're talking about Mendel and his pea plants, both of them showed up. I'm sorry, when Mendel and his pea plants, one would dominate or overpower the recessive. Here they both show. Because here we're talking about a co-dominant pattern of inheritance. Okay, so what that means is these are the alleles that we have. So it means that, okay, so I'll write the term genotype, and then I'll write here phenotype. So if we have the genotype, capital B, then the corresponding phenotype would be a black dog. If we have the genotype capital W, then we would have the corresponding phenotype that is the white dog. But if we have BW, that would be a spotted dog. So that's what we have there. So a black dog mates with a white dog. What % chance will the offspring be spotted? So let's demonstrate that cross. So here is our Punnett square. And now it's the same as what we've been doing. Different pattern of inheritance, but now it's just the same setup. So now we have to show the cross between a black dog and a white dog. And here's the genotype for the black dog. So capital B. And then we're crossing that with a white dog. So it's capital W. And just as we did with the other Punnett squares, we fill in. So BW, BW, and BW. So this is spotted. The phenotype for this genotype BW is also spotted, as are these two. So to fill out your notes, the cross shows that it's between BB and WW. Okay, we did the square here. And then the answer to this question, what % chance will the offspring be spotted? The answer to that is 100%. And in this case, the genotypic ratio and the phenotypic ratio are both the same. And in this case, both of them are 4-0. So that's what we have for that one. And again, it's codominance because both of the alleles show. And so that's how we do this problem here. So that's everything showing up there. Now, blood type also is inherited in a manner that is also codominant. So you may know your blood type, you may not know your blood type, but you are one of 4 blood types. And the other, so I'm A positive, and there's another part to your blood type that's called the Rh factor. So what we're referring to here is just the A or B or AB or O antigen. We're not talking about the Rh factor, which refers to the plus or negative. Okay, so going here. This is determined by multiple alleles. So these are traits. Blood type is a trait that has more than 2 possible alleles, and therefore there's more variation in phenotypes. So when we were looking at the dog colors, there was B for black and W for white. With the horses, there was the red coat or the white coat. But here there's more alleles. Now, there are three possible alleles that are associated with at least this antigen for blood types. There's an A allele, a B allele, and an O allele. And it's based on a protein that's on the surface of our red blood cells. So a person's blood type is based upon the presence or absence of two proteins, A and B, on the surface of the red blood cells. And these proteins are known as antigens. So if you are blood type A, you have the A antigen on your red blood cells. If you're blood type B, you have a B antigen on your red blood cells. If you're blood type AB, you have both antigens on your red blood cells. And if you have type O blood, you have neither. So we were talking about alleles, like a black allele and a white allele. So there's two alleles associated with the spotting trait in dogs here. But when we were talking about blood type here, we have a third allele. Now, these are associated with what are called immunoglobulins, which are part of your immune system in your blood. So there's basically three alleles associated with blood type. So again, A blood has the A protein, B blood has the B protein, AB blood has both proteins, and O blood has neither. So your blood type is dependent upon which combination of alleles you have. Now, as we noted the B and W allele there, let's note the alleles here. So I put capital I and an A, and that is an allele for blood type A. This is an allele for blood type B. And then this lowercase I is an allele for blood type O. So there's multiple alleles. There's more than just two. So there's something new here, and that is the letter I, because it's associated with a specific part of our immune system. Now, the fact that this is a capital letter and this is a capital letter, but this is a lowercase letter, O is recessive to these two. But these are codominant with each other. So for example, with blood type, if you are this, you're blood type A. If you are this, you're blood type B. If you are this, you're blood type AB. And if you are this, you're blood type O. So you could be one of these four blood types. Now, if I'm blood type AB, it means I got an A allele from one parent and a B allele from the other parent. So up here are the alleles, and over here on the left-hand side, these are the genotypes. Okay? So A and B together give you blood type AB. Two of these alleles give you blood type O. Two B alleles give you blood type B. Two A alleles give you blood type A. But you see that these capitals indicate that they're both dominant over O. So there's a second genotype for blood type A and B, and that's a heterozygote genotype, which is this. So if you are IA, or IA lowercase I, then you could be blood type A. If you're IB or IB lowercase I, then you are blood type B. If you are IA, IB, that's the only genotype for type AB blood. And then if you are lowercase I, that's the only genotype for type O blood. So those are the associated genotypes for blood types. Now, what we see here is actually a summary of what I just presented to you. So the phenotype, type A blood, is when the A protein is present. So you could have two A alleles or an A and an O allele. And these are the two genotypes associated with that I wrote here. If you have type B blood, you have the B protein, and either two B alleles or a B and an O, and those are the genotypes associated with that. Type AB blood, both A and B proteins, so an A and a B allele, and there's the genotype associated with that. And then if you're type O blood, neither protein is present. So you just have two O alleles. And here's the genotype associated with that. So that's how that works for blood typing. And then here is an example problem. So I put the genotypes here. Now, what are the possible blood types of children from a mother who is AB and a father who is O? So first of all, here is the cross. So if we want to cross a mother who is AB, here is the genotype for AB. So an A and a B allele. So IA, IB. So that's one part of a cross. And a father who is type O blood. So that's two lowercase i's. So that's the genotype. And we wrote this on the other side here. So blood type AB with blood type O. So that's the cross here. Now we set up the Punnett square. So here's the cross that we set up. And each allele, as we've done before, gets a row and a column. So here's the lowercase I and the lowercase I. So the two O alleles from the father who's type O. Here is IA, IB from the mother who is type AB. And then here is that possibility in that part of the Punnett square. If I bring down this part from the first column, if I bring over this part in the second row, and I continue filling out the Punnett squares, bring this over, bring this down, and bring this over, I now have filled out my Punnett square. So that takes care of the Punnett square. Now go to the answer. And the question is, what are the possible blood types of children? So the answer to that is, well, this person is blood type A, and that person is blood type A. So, because for the phenotype A, these are the two possible genotypes. And this person is blood type B, and this person is blood type B. Because A overpowers O, and B overpowers O. But when present together, they both show. So both type A blood and type B blood are possible. And now let's determine the genotypic ratio and the phenotypic ratio. And you see that there's two A's and two B's, two type A's and two type B's. So that's the phenotypic ratio. And that may be reduced to 1-to-1 because there's two type A's and two type B's. Now for the genotypic ratio, we have two genotypes. We have what we call a heterozygous A, and we have a heterozygous B. So we have two of each, 2-to-2. If you write 2-to-2, that is completely acceptable. But that can be reduced to 1-to-1. And that's how you do that problem. Here's another example. So let's go to this example. A woman is heterozygous for type A bloods. Okay, so here is this. So let's do this cross. If she's heterozygous for type A blood, she has two different alleles, and her husband is homozygous for type B blood. So he has two of the same alleles. They brought home a baby boy from the hospital that was blood type AB. Is this possible, or was there a mix-up? So here's the cross that we have, IA lowercase I with IB. So now let's set up the Punnett square. Now we have one parent, IB, and the other who is IA lowercase I, and fill everything in. So the genotype that goes here is IAIB. The phenotype is blood type AB. We have the genotype IAIB here. The phenotype is AB blood. The genotype that goes here is IB lowercase I, that's blood type B. And here we have IB lowercase I, and the phenotype for that is type B blood. So now the answer is it possible that they could bring home a baby boy from the hospital that's blood type AB? And it is possible. It is possible. What are the genotypic and phenotypic ratios? So here, the two possible genotypes include IA, IB, and we also have IB lowercase I, and we have two of both. Again, you can leave 2-to-2 or reduce to 1-to-1. For the phenotypic ratio, the top row has 2 blood type AB, and the bottom row has 2 blood type B. So that's a ratio of 2-to-2, which reduces to 1-to-1. Now that's an example of how to do that second problem. Skip this page, just X this out. Okay, so just cross out the table. We won't be getting into blood transfusions. This goes along with a lab that we do in class, which we are unable to do. So just cross this out. So the next parent of inheritance, and this is where we'll finish up today for this week with info, is something where there is a blend or a mixing of the two alleles. So in incomplete dominance, I don't know where to put that. Okay, so in incomplete dominance, if we take a red flower and a white flower, the offspring will show a blending of the two traits. So we would see something like a pink flower. If we have red and white combined together in a pattern of inheritance like codominance, both will show in the heterozygote, which is why when we're talking about the dog or the horse, we have a red horse and a white horse, the horse has both colored hairs. Or the black and white chicken, the chicken has both colored feathers. But here in codominance, there's a blending of those two traits. Now, we always use the example with flowers because it's a very visual example. There's other patterns of inheritance with people and human traits that are incompletely dominant, but when teaching this to freshman bio students, we use the example with flowers because it's a very visual example. When you take red, you take white, you blend them to make pink. So that's why we use flowers as an example. So we take this and you see the flowers, and the heterozygote, in this case, shows a different phenotype. And there's a blend. So here we have a red flower and we have a white flower. And when they cross, they make pink flowers. So in this example, then when we cross the two pinks, the white reappears. The example also is true for betta fish, where that color then blends. And we use capital letters here. So with this, let's say that R is for the red allele and W is for the white allele. So if there's two capital R's, that would be a red flower. Okay, so that would be a red flower. If there's two capital W's, that would be for a white flower. And then if there is an R and a W, that would be for a pink flower. So that's how that works. So with the first pattern that we were talking about with codominance, if we said this was red, that was white, then RW would be like a red and white flower. But with this and complete dominance, when we have red and white, it actually blends to make pink. So let's go to an actual practice problem. Different pattern of inheritance, but the plan of attack is still the same. So the example is if we have a red and a white snapdragon, which is just a flower. That's what the snapdragon looks like. These are flowers that are called 4 o'clock flowers, same parent of inheritance. So if a red and white snapdragon are cross-pollinated, what color flowers will the offspring show? So first of all, here's the cross. We're crossing a red snapdragon with a white snapdragon. So the genotype for red is RR, the genotype for white is WW. That's the cross. Now here's the Punnett square, where we have two R's, we have two W's. So now we fill out the Punnett square, and everything happens to be RW. So now let's answer the question. So what color flowers will the offspring show? The answer is pink. And then what is the genotypic ratio? Well, they're all RW. So we have 4 RWs and 0 of everything else. And the phenotypic ratio, they're all pink. So we have 4 pinks and 0 of everything else. So that's where we're going to end.